Hi there. This podcast was recorded in early 2023. With the acknowledgement that our world and current events shift every day, we hope you enjoy this slice of life from our community's voices.
The human story is the search for belonging. From childhood to adulthood, in joy and in struggle, we all sit in questions of how to make sense of it all. What is our place? Why are we here? What is our story of searching? Join us in conversation with community members, each sharing some of their own story. I am Ben Spratt, and this is Belonging. It is truly a pleasure today to be sitting with a friend, fellow community member, Nikki Fisher. Nikki is a veteran, a supermom, and a leader in our Rodeph Sholom School community, the proud wife of Adam, the even more proud mother of Gideon, who is an 8th grader right now at Rodeph Sholom School. And this is an opportunity for us, Nikki, to get to take many of our little conversations and bring it into a slightly different forum. So we'd love to begin, if you're willing, to explore what is your search for belonging.
Funny enough, I had this conversation 2 weeks ago, which is very weird. Belonging for me in the beginning was conforming to everyone else, especially leaving Chicago and moving to Toledo. It was shocking to see how people are treated in Toledo versus Chicago. In Chicago, especially with my parents, we knew everybody and everyone. So there was never this, only black and white like it is in Toledo. You know what I mean? Even the Spanish were considered white. So going there and being looked down upon and being in Chicago, and it's just like you're like everyone else, it was very shocking and annoying. And I had to conform to it because, you have to go along to get along. But when I was 13, it something clicked, and it was just like, I'm not like them. I was never like them. I don't sound like them. I'm nothing like them. I'm going to be me. And I decided to just be Nikki, the Nikki that won't be bullied, the Nikki that knows that she doesn't have a lot of money, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Because I'm not really into fashion, and I went to an all-girl Catholic school, high school, and they had money. So the socioeconomic issue was there too. So you have the racial issue and the socioeconomic issue. But also with that, I also had the whole, I'm not black enough because I didn't sound like they did in Toledo. Of course, it's like, oh, well, she sounds white, or she's trying to be this and trying to be that. It's like, yeah, no, I'm just being Nikki. After I graduated, went to college, same issue, more the racial side, but from the black community. And it was one girl, I'm just call her Queen Bee. She told all the other black students at the college, I went to Case Western, and, don't talk to her, she's not good enough, whatever, right? And it wasn't till, that was my freshman year, and it wasn't until my sophomore year when I started hanging out with Adam that they were like, oh no, we got to get her back into the community. It was just like, you kicked me out of the community. You didn't like me. I wasn't good enough, So again, screw you. I'm just Nikki. I didn't have the patience nor the energy to have to prove who I am. So that was college. And, of course, I ended up marrying Adam and moving to New York. And New York is the place I actually felt comfortable because no one cared, because you had so many different types here. And of course, it's early 2000s. So you had only people from the 90s would understand this, but the alternative people, the hip hop people, and even among the black community here, they were fine with me. Even though sometimes they were wonders so are you West Indian? Are you actually Ethiopian or anything like that? And just no. And they're like, okay, cool. But they accepted me for me. And then with the military, I didn't have to deal with that from a racial standpoint. I had to deal with it from a feminine standpoint. Because in the military, being a female, you have to be tough. You can't be emotional. You can't have your heart in your sleeve. You know, you have to be logical because most of the men are logical. That's a joke. They're not. Now that I have a son who's multiracial, he has to deal with that. And he's dealing with it on both ends, socioeconomic and racial. And he is trying to figure it out. And when I told him my story of like how, you know, moving from Chicago to Toledo and not being Black enough, he kept looking at me like, really? You're not Black enough? It's like, yeah, I know. Because he's looking at my skin color. He's like, how is that not Black enough? It's like, I get that. But it's not just that. It's like how you speak, what you do, you know?
I mean, it's incredible, Nikki, to think about the experience of you at Gideon's age, you know, moving to Toledo, and the experience it, for most of us, the most awkward, challenging, difficult years of our lives often are those middle school years, feeling a sense of rejection from pretty much every direction that you turned. And now to see your son growing up with experiences and privileges that you didn't have and see some of those same struggles come forward. So I'm curious for you, how is Gideon receiving some of your lived experience as he's living his own?
Funny, he's like, I take everything with a grain of salt that you and Abba are saying because I want to do things for myself and by myself, which I understand that he wants to be independent. So I'm letting him figure it out. And he has, actually. There was a moment where he did not, and it affected him badly. But now he's better. In the summer program, he is with lots of different types of kids, different races, different backgrounds, different everything. And he loves every minute of it. And he's so happy. When he comes home, he's like telling me, oh, this happened, you know. And he's also with his friend group from here at Rodeph, he's like telling them what's going on, you know. So it's like, if he could, he can, he would love to integrate all of it and just enjoy spending time with all these people. You know what I mean?
It's such a powerful statement to be able to bring forward, but particularly at an age where there's typically so much insecurity, so much, you know, hormones raging, puberty, everyone's looking and being exposed to a more adult world, but not able to actually play in it yet, but pretending to. And, you know, for me, it was the time when I finally was public about my Jewishness, and I had my friends turn on me and beat me up. And when you go back and think about, you know, life in Toledo, did your parents let you figure it out? Like, were you the one who came to your own philosophy of, I'm just going to be Nikki?
Yes, that was all me. I remember I was walking my dog Dino. He's a little pincher pincher. And I'm looking at myself and just like, what the hell am I doing? This is not me. I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, and I hate this. And so I just stopped. And it's like, I'm going to be Nikki, and that's it. It's like they want me, like, you're Black, you're supposed to be like this, you're supposed to talk like this, you're supposed to walk like this. And it's just like, that's not who I am. I like lots of things. I know lots of people. I don't want to stay with just one community, especially when I was exposed to so many different types of communities, you know? And so many different types of people. Like, my first best friend was Chinese. Her name was Joanne when I was younger. And then my other best friends was Chastity, a Black girl, Lizzie, a Puerto Rican, and, oh my God, LaTanya. She was mixed. We think she was Black and Filipino. You know what I mean? Just to go to Toledo with just Black and white. Just like, no. Can't do that.
And in moving to New York, you experienced a city where there was a celebration, at least to some degree, of so many different flavors and sounds and cultures. Did it immediately feel like this was home?
Crazy enough, yes. you're keeping the your culture, your home in your heart, even though you're not there. And then you want to share it with other people, like this is the food, this is the flavor, this is what we like to do. That's what I love about New York. They don't put you in a box. You can be who you want to be. So if you are Dominican and you're trans, you can be that. You know what I mean? If you're trying to figure yourself out, that's okay. There are people here who will help you to figure out who you are without judgment. And that's the best part that I loved about New York City. It was without judgment. What is it? New York, they have Afro-punk concerts and a big thing. And my thing is just like, really? And no judgment, no nothing. If you like this music, come jam with us. How awesome is that,
So I'm thinking for a moment about the person whose parents hail from Mississippi and Louisiana, who grew up first in Chicago and then Toledo, and who probably never imagined that in her adult life she would be connected to not just one, but two Jewish communities, at least in the context of the Rodeph Sholom community. While we have a number of people who have served in the military, it is not the typical trope of many people, at least in this community. Can you tell us a little bit of the journey that prompted you to serve and whatever part of that experience you're willing to lift up?
Okay. I joined because I had to pay student loans. To join the military, you have to take a test, the ASVAB. And, you get so many MOSs, occupations that you can choose from. The three were working with computers, intelligence, and working in the medical field. My dad works with computers. My mom's a nurse practitioner now, but she's in the medical field. So what, of course, am I going to do? My own thing, intelligence. That was interesting. That's where I learned that you can't have your heart in your sleeve. They want you to be tough, not emotional. I learned shooting. They're like, think of someone you don't like or whatever have you. I always missed. But when I let everything go, and I seriously let everything go, I hit the target. So, no emotion.
So through training, service, deployment, what gave you a feeling of belonging? Where was your heart back home? What did you hold on to help, give you a little bit of a beacon through, I'm sure, things that ranged in feeling and experience?
You know what? It was, her name is McCroy. I call her McCroy, Sergeant McCroy. She was the one, especially during deployment. At first, we didn't like one another at all. But then we ended up being in a tent together, a 6-man tent, just 6 of us females. And we got to know one another. And she understood me. She was much older than me, but she understood me. So whenever it's like I'm losing my crap, she'd be like, Fish, calm down. It's okay. She made me feel like I was, one, not crazy for my thoughts and my emotions, but she didn't make me feel like I was a hindrance. It's just like, it's that whole thing, like, Nikki, you can be Nikki. It's okay to be Nikki, even here. Even when you have the uniform on, it's okay to be you.
Isn't it incredible how sometimes it's just one person, looking you in the eye, saying your feelings are real. You are a person that's needed. You belong. Is sometimes all it takes to change the experience. And while it doesn't necessarily in that instant change the entire world, just giving that little touch point that says, I'm not spinning off and the orbit. I'm not some alien to this planet.
Can I tell you something?
Please.
You did that too. Here. Rodeph Sholom community, it's mainly Upper West Side people, and Adam, he's Jewish, so he knows all the ins and outs. I'm an outsider. But talking with you, I felt seen in this community. It was you and Susie, Susie Newman. For me, and what I've seen and observed, being Jewish, you're a target. You know what I mean? So being in a Jewish school near a Jewish synagogue, it's like, holy crap, it's a target. And it's like, how do I deal with this? How do I, that's like the military brain kicking in. And you guys calm me down and like, it's okay. And, how are you? What's going on? And not seen for, oh, maybe she can convert. It's like seen for, that's Nikki,
Well, I also know the feeling's mutual, Nikki, because, in those moments when I'd ask you, how are you doing? Instead of just giving the usual social script of, fine, how are you? You would usually give me something authentic. And so you also shared some of, this is Nikki. And I think about how many of us, we spend our days, I spend my day, and, in the orbits of hundreds or thousands of people, and we're all spinning disconnected. And that sometimes the very thing that we're looking for is truly as simple as, am I willing to just stop long enough to look somebody in the eye, to ask a question and actually mean the question, or have a question asked of me and be willing to respond with something authentic? And, and going back to your statement about the magic of New York City is, how do we feel enough integrity, enough pride in who we are in order to be willing to share that with the world, and enough humility and curiosity that we're willing to ask and inquire of another? And that's the magic.
So funny enough, that is like kind of like a Midwestern thing. Like, how are you? Like, generally, how are you? And Gideon picked up on that. And so, like, he'll go into stores or, talk to waitresses or whatever. It's like, so how are you doing? And, it takes him aback, and they'll answer. It's like, really? And he'll, like, have a conversation with them. And it's like, you can see their heads like, wait, this young kid is asking me how I'm doing, and he's genuine about it. You know what I mean? And I know that's me, because I do that all the time. Because I know if I'm going crazy in this world, I know other people are. So sometimes you just need that little spark, just for, a minute, 5 minutes, whatever,
And so I want to know, how did the person who had first walked into this Rodeph Sholom community feeling very much like the outsider come to be the person who is volunteering left and right and helping to lead and connect and cohere this community together? How did that happen?
Some of the moms that I met were really cool. And they were like, hey, you want to help out with this? I'm like, sure. And, want to volunteer for this? Sure. I'll hang out with you. No big deal. And it just kind of went from there. Because it's like, hey, if I can help them, then maybe they can spend more time with the kids, Because I was volunteering at the library. And I like books. I love having books around me. So that was cool. And, I'm talking with other moms, and we're talking about all the ups and downs of life and kids and everything. And so, again, that's that belonging, because it's like, I'm not the only one that's dealing with this craziness. You know what I mean? And like, how the hell do I get this kid to sleep? How the hell do I get this kid to eat the right foods? And like, we're all sharing our, techniques and everything. When I look back at my life, my parents did the same thing too. My dad was the president of the PTA. And, he helped out with so many things. And so to me, it's just like, that's natural.
And I think it touches on another important piece of belonging, which, is that some of belonging is something that we build. I think this is some of what you're touching on is, I think a lot of us go through our life waiting for someone else to give some like coronation ceremony or like the magic wand that anoints and says, Nikki, you now belong. And in reality, a lot of it actually is in the moments when we are least obsessed with a question and instead feeling there's a need in the world, and be willing to be the one that rolls up our sleeves and dives in and says, I've got something that I can do to help meet that need. And along the way, suddenly discover that we've been building our path of belonging all along. And if I can ask just one more question is, you get to see in Gideon already a remarkable, dazzling human being. I'm a huge fan and feel grateful that I got to publicly embarrass him a little bit. Yes. At his bar mitzvah, but if you were going to think of some of the seeds that you hope that you and Adam are planting in Gideon, knowing that ultimately they're going to grow in ways that you could never foresee. But what are some of those seeds? Or you talked about the spark. What are some of the sparks that you're helping to place in his own heart?
Accept people for who they are. That's the one seed that we have been cultivating with him. And so far he has, but we'll see when he gets to high school. That's going to be a whole different ballgame. As he, moves on with his life and has his own family and, do whatever it is that he wants to do that makes him happy, where he's all glowy and stuff. That's what I want,
Well, I do think, in your journey being one that has brought you into seeing some of the darker shadows of humanity and seeing some of the frailty and limitations of people and seeing how much fear actually is the poison to that very spark. Creating an environment where Gideon or any of our youth can feel celebrated for the unique spark they bring into this world, the unique gift that they are. It's not the antidote to everything, but it certainly is the essential foundation, the essential ingredient to the world getting better. And then the challenge is, how do we share enough, collide enough, have courageous enough conversations that we can move beyond the fear? And, you see, we all dance around the harder topics, but I think it takes the courageous person willing to kind of speak to them a little bit, to name them, that can finally open some of the paths that have been closed for all of us. And, I know for Gideon, he is always that person for years and years has been that one willing to raise his hand and ask the hard question and dive into the hard topic.
Well, a friend of ours, she would say, you have to have that courageous conversation. And in her case, it was talking about sex and everything. But it's also just life. Especially in New York, you see all of it. From the richest to the poorest sleeping on the street. You know what I mean? You see all of it and you can't ignore it anymore. So it's just how do you want to live? And how do you want to get there? Do you want to get there the jacked up way? Or do you want to get there where you're helping and taking people with you? You know what I mean?
Nikki, I just want to say thank you. It's really, just forget the recording and the podcast for a second, just a real genuine gift to get. So much wisdom you just heaped out. And holy wow, you took us into some really important areas. And thank you for your willingness to do that.
I hope so. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us and listening to this story of belonging. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me on Twitter at Ben H. Spread. For more information about CRS, visit us online at rodeph sholom.org.